Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unlocking something truly magical. We're going to explore exactly how you can craft your very own manga or anime by combining timeless storytelling structures with some absolutely cutting-edge AI tools. Seriously, we're taking the ancient rules of myth and pairing them with modern technology to empower you to bring your absolute best ideas to life. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So let me ask you, have you ever wanted to create your own anime? I know I have. And for this explainer, I want you to look at yourself as the hero of this journey. The blank page is your threshold, and we're about to cross it together.
To kick things off, there's this brilliant quote from an anime framework guide on AutoWeeb that really hits the nail on the head. It says, "You don't need a complete world or a perfect plot, you need a protagonist worth following and a problem worth solving." I mean, consider this your personal call to adventure. You really don't need every single detail figured out right now. You just need that initial spark to start creating.
Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for today. We'll start with the call to create, map out the hero's journey, dive into designing your protagonist, cover generating the world, and finally, we'll wrap up with breaking the mold.
Part 1. The call to create.
Let's actually frame the creative process itself as a mythical quest. It's the ultimate foundation for building a really compelling narrative arc. But first, we need to understand the blueprint. Back in 1949, Joseph Campbell popularized this fascinating concept in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, called the monomyth. By definition, the monomyth is the common template of stories involving a hero who goes on an adventure, is victorious in a decisive crisis, and comes home transformed. And this right here, this is the structural DNA we're going to use for our anime plot.
Moving on to part 2, the hero's journey.
Before we even think about generating a single pixel of art, we need to literally map out this mythical story structure. Campbell essentially organized this journey into 3 main acts. First up is departure, which is where the hero separates from their ordinary, everyday world. Second is initiation, involving a descent into a series of really tough trials. And third is the return, where our hero comes home, but they're fundamentally transformed. This high-level framework gives you the absolute perfect 3-act pacing to outline your anime script.
Now, what's super interesting here is how this terminology has evolved to be even more useful for writers today. See, Campbell originally had 17 highly specific stages, with names like the belly of the whale for the departure phase, or apoptosis for initiation. But in 2007, Hollywood film producer Christopher Vogler modernized these stages into a really practical writer's guide. So belly of the whale becomes crossing the first threshold, and apoptosis just becomes reward. It basically translates complex comparative mythology directly into actionable storytelling steps you can use right now.
To put into perspective just how powerful this is, think about Star Wars. George Lucas deliberately structured the original 1977 film with the hero's journey archetype in mind. In fact, during a really famous 1988 interview series, both Campbell and journalist Bill Moyers agreed that the trash compactor scene on the Death Star is the perfect example of that belly of the whale stage. The hero is literally swallowed into the unknown, facing what looks like total self-annihilation before being reborn to fight another day. It just works flawlessly.
Which brings us to part 3, designing your protagonist.
You know how in the old myths, heroes always receive some sort of supernatural aid, like a magic talisman or a wise guide? Well, for the modern creator, your supernatural aid is AI image generation tools. According to the AI guide Promptomania, hitting your character design fundamentals requires very specific details in your prompts. You've got to specify hair, eyes, outfit, pose, and overall art style. And here's a fantastic pro tip from the source material. Using highly specific anime terminology gives you incredible direct control over the AI. Want that classic single strand of hair sticking up? Use the term ahogue. Going for a small, cute style? Type chibi. Want that pretty boy aesthetic? Use bishunen. The more precise your language is, the more vivid your protagonist will be.
Choosing the right AI model is essentially like picking your hero's weapon. While there are a ton of options out there, the Promptomonia guide points out that Midjourney Niji 6, Stable Diffusion using Automé Aloras, and Leonardo Phoenix are particularly strong choices, because they're specifically tailored for anime and manga content. These models just intuitively understand the nuances of the Japanese anime style way better than your standard general-purpose models. And the prompt you choose completely sets the stage for your world. Take a classic school character built with prompts like silver hair, violet eyes, and floating cherry blossoms. Now contrast that with a dynamic samurai using prompts like ponytail, katana drawn, and dynamic action pose mid-slash.
It's like night and day, right? Simply changing your protagonist's descriptive text totally shifts the entire atmosphere and potential plot of your story. All right, part 4, generating the world.
We are officially entering what the monomyth calls the road of trials. This is the challenging but incredibly rewarding process of consistently building out your anime's environment. To survive this trial, you really have to master environmental prompts. A 90s retro anime prompt relies heavily on terms like washed-out tones, VHS color palette, and cel-shaded to nail that nostalgic screenshot look. But if you want a Makoto Shinkai-style world, you need totally different words. Think golden hour, photorealistic urban background, and lens flare to capture that hyper-detailed emotional atmosphere. Your language strictly dictates the outcome.
Now, specifying an era or referencing a famous studio is kind of the ultimate hack for environmental consistency. For instance, if you prompt for a Studio Ghibli-style scene by explicitly asking for soft watercolor warmth, fluffy white clouds, and a hand-painted aesthetic, it pretty much ensures your world maintains a very distinct, warm, and nostalgic feeling from one scene to the next.
But what if you're aiming to create a manga rather than an animated show? Well, then your world building happens inside panels. The Promptomania guide actually suggests using highly specific panel terminology to force the AI to understand the layout you want. Use phrases like manga cover art, double-page spread, or dramatic speed lines combined with screen tone shading. Including these specific compositional terms and inking styles creates a much more professional, high-contrast manga quality.
And finally, part 5, breaking the mold. So we're at the final stage of our journey. This is where you become what's known as the master of two worlds. You take that classic structure, pair it with your new AI tools, and actually evolve the myth itself. Because the hero's journey hasn't remained static, it's evolved over time. If we trace the history, anthropologists like Edward Burnett Tyler began observing hero myth patterns way back in 1871. This eventually led to Campbell's famous 1949 publication. But in the modern era, the monomyth has been subject to feminist literature critiques and structural pushback. As a modern writer, it is absolutely crucial context to consider how these traditional narratives are viewed today.
For example, the monomyth has actually faced significant criticism from actual folklorists. Scholars like Barry Tolkien and Alan Duns point out that Campbell's approach suffers from source selection bias. Essentially, they argue that he cherry-picked stories that fit his preconceived, overly abstract mold, while totally ignoring equally valid stories that just didn't fit. Some even argue the theory is so incredibly broad that it strips away important ethnographic context.
On top of that, there is a rich body of feminist literature critiquing the traditional monomyths for focusing solely on a masculine journey. Enter the heroine's journey. This framework looks at characters like Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, who has to pursue goals of love and liberty against massive systemic barriers. Or take the myth of Cupid and Psyche, where the call to adventure is entirely involuntary. These critiques point out that underprivileged protagonists are often navigating a patriarchal society. They don't start out with privilege, and they usually don't just return with the triumphant elixir. Instead, they often have to work twice as hard just to achieve equality.
And get this, we even have the American monomyth, a term coined back in 1977. This is a totally unique cultural reaction to Campbell's framework. Instead of a hero returning to bestow some magic elixir on society, the American monomyth features a selfless superhero who emerges to save a threatened paradise, wins a decisive victory, and then just recedes back into obscurity. Think of modern characters like Jack Reacher, who start and finish their stories completely off the grid.
Which brings us to the ultimate point of your journey as a creator. Campbell wrote, "Freedom to pass back and forth across the world division is the talent of the master." By understanding the ancient rules of myth and the very valid modern criticisms of them, you can pass back and forth into the modern world of futuristic AI tools. Mastering both the classic structures and the new technologies is exactly what allows you to truly break the mold and create something breathtaking.
So, you've got the structure, you've got the tools. The only question left is, what story are you going to tell? The blank page is literally waiting for you. Gather your supernatural AI aids, outline your plot, define your protagonist, and take that first step across the threshold today. Keep creating, and I'll see you in the next explainer.